All right, today we are going to write equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So a quick review. What do you know about slopes of parallel lines? Always the slopes are the same for parallel lines. Always the same. And what do we know about slopes of perpendicular lines? That the slopes are opposite reciprocals of one another. So if you know one slope, the opposite reciprocal is going to be the opposite sign. So if it was positive, it'll be negative. And then reciprocal, you're going to flip the fraction, flip the rise over run. Whatever numbers are there, trade places. There are also special types of lines. You have vertical lines, where your slope is undefined. So the equation of the vertical line is just x equals x1. So you have a vertical line, and it's undefined because you can't divide by 0, which is what you would have in that case. Horizontal lines, your slope is 0, so you can have a 0 on top. And that's just a horizontal line, and the equation for that is y equals y1. So whatever your y point is, it equals that. So example number 1. Write an equation of the line that passes through the point and is parallel to the line with the given equation. So remember, parallel is same slope, and then we also have our point here. So if we look at this point, we have point at -1, 1. So we'll just call that x1 and y1 because we're going to be using point slope form. And then we have our equation y equals 2x minus 3. So we need to come up with an equation that is going to give us a line parallel to this. So we can identify our slope, which is 2. We know it's going to be the same slope, so our slope is going to be 2. And then we can use point slope to plug everything in. So for y minus y1, we bring 1 down, so it becomes y minus 1. For m times x minus x1, we plug in 2 for m, and then -1 for x1. So since we have that double negative minus -1, it'll become a positive, so plus 1. So we have y minus 1 equals 2x plus 2 after we distribute that 2. We need to multiply also. Then we want to get y by itself. So to move this 1, we need to add it to the other side. Since it was minus 1, we need to add to the other side. So we get y equals 2x plus 3. And that is the equation of a line that is parallel, remember same slope, and passes through -1, 1. Remember, we use those points to plug into point slope form. Look at example B. We have the point 5, 0, and the equation y equals 4x plus 1. We know it needs to be parallel, so we're going to use the same slope of 4, m equals 4. And we're going to use point slope form to plug in our point and our slope to get our equation. So we plug in 0 for y1, so y minus 0. Plug in 5 for x1, so x minus 5. And then we need to distribute our slope, distribute that 4 to everything in the parentheses there. So we get y minus 0 equals 4x minus 20. And really, we can just drop the 0. Anytime you subtract or add 0, it just stays the same. So we get y equals 4x minus 20. All right, this other example, so one of our special lines. We have the point -3, 0, and y equals 8. So at y equals 8, that's up here, and we just have a horizontal line. Remember, anytime y equals something, just a number, it's a horizontal line going through that point. So to make a line parallel to it, that also passes through negative 3, 0, all we have to do is look at the y value. Remember we said for a horizontal line, the equation is y equals y1. Well, here's our y1, so y equals 0. And then we can draw that line. All right, now looking at perpendicular lines. So, excuse me. Example number 2, write an equation of the line that passes through the point P and is perpendicular to the line with the given equation. So remember, perpendicular is opposite reciprocal, so the opposite sign and flip the fraction. So here we have our point, 4, 2, call that x1, y1. We have y equals 1/2 x plus 4. So the slope was 1/2. We want perpendicular to that, so we need to change the sign to a negative. Since this was positive, it becomes negative, and we flip the fraction so it becomes 2/1 instead, so our slope is -2. Then use point-slope form to plug in your point. Our y1 is 2, so we have y minus 2. Plug in -2 for m. And then our x1 is 4, so we get x minus 4 for that part. Then distribute the 2. We get y minus 2 equals -2x plus 8. And then we need to move this -2, or this y minus 2, we need to move the minus 2 over to the other side. So we need to add it to the other side. Basically change the sign to move it across the equal sign. So we get y equals -2x plus 10. Our next example, we have the point 3, -2, where y equals -3x plus 2 for the equation, and we need to come up with the equation that is perpendicular to that and also passes through point 3, -2. So look first at the slope of the given equation. We have -3. The opposite of that would be a positive, and the reciprocal of that is 1/3. So just flip the fraction. If that's -3/1, it becomes positive 1/3. Then we plug in our point into the point slope formula. So we get y plus 2. Since it was a -2, y minus -2, we have the double negative, it becomes a positive, equals 1/3, that was our slope, times x minus 3, and we just plug in the 3 for x1. Distribute 1/3 inside the parentheses, and we get y plus 2 equals 1/3 x minus 1. To move the positive 2 over, we need to subtract it to the other side, and we get y equals 1/3 x minus 3. And our last example, looking at the special lines, vertical and horizontal. If we have a point at -5, -3, that would be over here, and y equals -3. That's our red horizontal line. Remember, y equals a number is going to be a horizontal line. So if we're doing perpendicular, we know the line needs to be vertical, and that means x equals something. So we look at our point that we know the line passes through. Our x value is -5, so x equals -5. For every point on that line, x equals -5. And that would be a perpendicular line to y equals -3.